Have we struggled to eliminate filler words from our speech? Have we had trouble evoking emotions in others? Does our delivery of humor fall short of funny? In a moment of clarity, our first educational presenter believes he has found the enduring flaw in Toastmasters' educational program that has kept us from mastering these skills. He believes a single, fundamental change will transform the speaking skills of every single Toastmaster worldwide. This is going to change everything from how we tell a joke to how we negotiate our next raise. Presenting this revelation in a speech entitled The Power of the Pause. Please help me welcome distinguished Toastmaster David Hubblewitz.
You know those times where you'll be thinking of things you're just working on. You might be doing laundry or cutting the grass, and a thought will jump in your head, some problem that you've been worrying about that you weren't thinking about then, but all of a sudden you have this epiphany. This comes to your mind all at once. The other day, I was preparing to go whitewater kayaking. I had pulled my gear out and everything like that, and I was listening to YouTube music. And a commercial came on, and the person was talking about how filler words are bad, and how filler words can actually make you sound less credible when you're speaking. And then I remembered this phrase, which we use in whitewater. Look at the route, not at the rock. In other words, wherever your eyes go, your boat will go. So if you are looking at the rock, you're going to hit it. And trust me, you're going to hit the rock every time. So why in Toastmasters do we focus on the rock, the filler word? Today we're going to talk about the power of the pause. I'm going to introduce you to the concept of the power of the pause that you can take and apply everywhere. Now, all of you should have a form on your table. And I'll point out that it has a QR code that you can scan to download this form. Don't do it now. You'll get this later. My form actually has stuff on the backside, and yours will too when you download the form. There's also a link at the bottom of the form to give you that in case you don't have a way to scan the QR codes. Now, on this, I wanted to make this big but I thought you'd like. Sorry. I wanted to make this big, pause, but I thought you would like to have more room, more space on the page. See how important pauses can be? Now, what I need right now is for someone, I need 2 volunteers who are good at counting. Up toward the front, anybody? And please, for our crowd, tell us your name. Katie. Katie is one of my counters. I need another counter. Anybody? Oh, please, we're volunteers. And tell us for your name, for our sake of our audience. Mata. All right, so Katie, first, I would like to ask you to keep track of my pauses. Don't worry about it, how long they are, how short they are, or anything like that. Just count the things that you think, that was a pause. All right? Now here's the tricky part. When you get to 20, I want you to stand up, interrupt this conference, and yell, bingo! Are we good? Let's give it a try. Go ahead, give it a try. Pretend you got to 20.
20.
Bingo. There you go, bingo. All right, hey, and so now for Mata, you're going to do the traditional, what we know of as a counter. Every time that I give a filler word, you're going to give a tick mark, a little tally mark. You can use the score sheet that you already have. And again, don't worry about anything other than those filler words. And I'm going to ask you to give me less slack. When I get to 10, you're going to stand up, interrupt this whole conference, and say, bongo. Give it a try.
Bongo.
Awesome. Come on. Some applause for our crew. All right. Now, awkward pauses are always fun, and that's a part of your speaking. With this form, you'll notice that I did have some on there, and I want to tell you a little bit about how pauses are broken down. The first is that I've separated them into incidental pauses and intentional pauses. Incidental pauses are those that you would naturally be speaking when you're talking. They typically follow punctuation. So commas, semicolons, periods, question marks, exclamation points. These are also places where you would otherwise have had a filler word. Any filler word you might have used, instead you might have put a pause there. Those are words that are not planned, they just happen. I like to call them silent fillers. Then there are the intentional pauses. And your intentional pauses, there are several of these. These are words that are pauses, and pauses, by the way, should be considered words. But that these pauses are intentional. They are deliberate. You're putting them there with a purpose. Now, how many of... There you go. My point has been made, and we're going to come back to that. And I'm hoping not to hear from you, Mata, just so you know. With the first one that I have, if you watched when I walked on stage, I did this, what I call a preemptive pause. You may have seen some speakers do this. They'll walk up on stage and they'll wait. They don't rush into their speech. Others will jump up there and start speaking right away. But the purpose of that preemptive pause is to do a few things. First, it is to gather your audience's attention, making sure that they're focused on you. And as you wait, you'll start to go, did he forget his line? Did he forget what he was going to say? But during this time, and mind you, going about 6 to 8 seconds is the target. 6 to 8 seconds is that sweet spot. And I want to give a little bit of special credit to our Master of Ceremonies, Kyle Hall, because when we go through that tree, through that root system, Kyle taught this concept to Omar Rivas, who, as my mentor, taught it to me. So it's coming from good people. That mother tree, yeah, that's where this is from. While you're doing this, this gives you a chance to get eye contact with your audience, look around, see who's going to be that troublemaker, or might be your volunteer. Also, it gives you a chance to identify where the nearest exit is in case you bomb. The preemptive pause, one of those powers of the pause. The next one I have on my list, and you can see it at the top of your header, is the punchline pause. I love dad jokes, so I'm going to share one with you. What is the difference between a good joke and a bad joke timing? Now, why did you laugh? Actually, that is the only joke I know where not giving a pause before telling the punchline works. Otherwise, whenever you're giving a joke or telling a joke, that you should give a pause before delivering the punchline. Why? This gives your audience a chance for their mind to continue down that track that you sent them. And then, when you deliver the punchline, to swing them in the opposite direction. And that's what makes it funny. Any joke you tell will always be more entertaining if you put a pause before the punchline. Now, accompanying that, hopefully, is what I refer to as the audience pause. Now, the audience pause comes in two different formats, generally. The first is the laugh pause. The second is the applause pause. The purpose of that is to give your audience time to respond to what you have said or what you have done. And it's really important that you don't step on your applause or step on your laughter. That can kill a joke faster than anything. The sweet spot on it is kind of like popping popcorn in your microwave oven. Who's done that? Come on. You know that you put the bag in there, and as it's popping, when it gets down to where the pops get fewer and fewer, then it's like, okay, stop it. Don't wait for it to pop all the corn. And don't wait for the applause to finish, but that you end it as they start to diminish. Very important part, both applause and laughter. And this will help to keep your speech progressing. That is another power of the pause, the audience pause. The next pause I have is the thoughtful pause. The thoughtful pause is very important for another reason. The thoughtful pause is one where you're giving your audience time to think. Now, this is similar to your audience pause, but that is silent. Why? This gives your audience an opportunity to take what you said and digest it. If you're telling a story, it gives them a chance to use their imagination. And if you're talking in technical topics, it gives them a time to absorb what you've said and digest it and refine it in their mind. Imagine talking about some very technical issue. It's really important that you do this. Also, if you talk fast, and you know these people who talk fast. In fact, I've looked this up, and of the cultures that speak quickly, it is actually the Caribbean and the Hispanic-speaking people in the Caribbean are the fastest talking people, and the words per minute that they say is incredibly fast. Why does this matter? If you have an accent in particular, it's important to put those thoughtful pauses in as much as you can so your audience can hear what you said and actually understand the words. The power of the pause. And that is the thoughtful pause. My next one, the power of the pause. That's the emphatic pause. I'm putting emphasis on the word that immediately follows or precedes the pause. You can see how this can help you when you're doing a series or a list or anything where you want to draw their attention to what you're about to say. Very similar to when you use whispering. If you want them to listen more carefully, whisper. That is the emphatic pause. There's one more pause that I have, and that is thank you. Katie, give her a hand. Someone's paying attention. What I just did is the indefinite pause. You will use that when you are going to speak and the next thing to be heard is someone else. Now you might be thinking, how can I use that in the real world? Because all of these pauses are things that you'll use somewhere in your life. Well, I'll give you a great example. You're negotiating your salary for a new job you're being hired for. And your employer or potential employer says to you, David, we want to offer you $90,000 a year. I would echo back with a question what he said. $90,000 a year? What's going through his mind right now? Ooh, maybe that's not enough. Ooh, what, and what happens is he will start to negotiate with himself. The best negotiation you can have is one where they are negotiating with themselves. This actually comes from a book. The book is called Never Split the Difference by, thank you, Chris Voss, V-O-S-S, Voss. Great book. I highly recommend it. It talks a lot about negotiation, and that is one of the skills that he brings out. So when you get all of these together, these are your pauses. There's another pause that we haven't talked about, and this shows just how important pauses are. Would you all please pause for a moment of silence? That is a powerful pause. We use pauses everywhere. In fact, it's in everything you do, whether you're a swimmer, a long-distance swimmer. Anybody? You know that when you swim, you don't just stroke, 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 stroke. You take a stroke and you hesitate for a moment. You glide for just a brief moment, and then you take your next stroke, and you actually go faster by doing that. Music. Debussy is his last name. Can't remember his first name. Claude Debussy. Some people who enjoy music. A composer said, the music is the space between the notes. Let me show you. That video on YouTube has received over 1 billion views. Could you hear in that the interplay between the pauses in the voice, the vocals, and the pauses in the melody? An amazing power that comes with the pause. Now let me show you a little bit of examples. You have the score sheet, get that out. And I'm going to switch over, and I'm going to introduce you to some videos of speeches. These aren't just any speeches. These are International Speech Contest winners. And what I want to do, I'm just going to play like a minute and a half of each of them. Hold on now. I'm going to play about a minute and a half of each, and I want you each to count the pauses that you hear. I'm going to hold this mic up there for you. And when I do, you can, if you want, try to differentiate between the intentional and the incidental pauses, but at the very least, just make sure that you catch as many pauses as you can. All right, this is Dhananjaya Pedirasi. Let me ask how you're scoring on that. Give me a number. Just tell me what you got. Anybody? 17, 19. Good. All right, now let's go to the next one. I'm going to turn the volume on this better. The next one, this is Mike Carr from a 2020. There's a minute and a half of that one. What did you think? How many pauses did you get from that? Anybody? So that was fewer than the first one, right? Significantly? Right? Our third speaker is Verity Price from the 2021. Again, also online. We're going to listen to a minute and a half of this one and get ready to count the pauses. Give me a count. How many pauses did anybody get? 31. Quite a few. Did you see a difference in the quality of the speech? And how does that correlate to the number of pauses? There's a little twist to this that you might not have noticed. The first speaker, Dhananjaya, was on a real stage in front of real people. What did he have that the other two speakers who were online only not have? The audience pause, which is perhaps the most important pause in that whole list. Why do they miss out? This is one of the reasons why you will hear me promote and advocate strongly for in-person meetings. You cannot get an audience pause. So what happens? Well, in the first speaker, he felt obligated to fill the sound. He had to fill that soundboard because, why? He didn't have an audience helping him to fill in the sound. The second person online, she actually did really well with her pauses, but you notice that she got a whole bunch more in, right? But I would contend that Dhananjaya spoke fewer words, but said more. See, she didn't have the audience to take and absorb some of that. So she had more time to get more pauses in. But you also have to look at the quality of those pauses. This is my call to action for all of you, is to take this form back to your clubs, share it with your clubs, share the link to the form to your clubs. Practice, like what we just did, practice doing this. And feel free to go out online and find these speakers. This is a great way for you to practice any of your speaking. Make sure that when you speak, you record your speeches so that you can then come back and look at this. These are the ways that you're going to get better at this. My intent is to see this actually transform how we look at speaking. As Toastmasters, we need to stop looking at the rock and start looking at the route. Taking this form back, using it, when you implement the pause counter, this will be a role in your club. They should not, and probably cannot, serve any other role while they're doing this. So don't try to blend this with your ah counter. Won't work. Trust me, I've tried it. It won't work. But it will if you give it to any other person that's there, even if you can't. But try to capture those pauses. The first few times you do this, I can tell you from practice, I could not differentiate. I'm just like counting the pauses, counting the pauses. But as you get going, oh, that was an incidental pause. That was an intentional pause. Dhananjaya, what was his first pause in his speech? He had a preemptive pause. Powerful. The preemptive pause. Keeping in mind that when they do the preemptive pause, your time does not begin when the Master of Ceremonies walks off the stage. Your time begins when you start talking or you start interacting with your audience. Use it. That's so valuable. Right there with having a good introduction and having a good opening line is having that good opening pause. You feel it. I presume you stopped counting my pauses, and that's okay. And you can see how I actually put in a lot, and that was intentional. That is to give you an opportunity to get a feel for what pauses can do for your speech. So if nothing else, start thinking about where you can use them as a word. I'll finish with this. I mentioned the music. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but you notice if you read music, if you've ever looked at music, you can have multiple notes on any given point in the measure. But wherever there is a rest note, there is no other note. That's how important the pause is in music or in anything else you do. Anything else you do, look for the pauses. The power of the pause.